Connecting Things September edition. So if you don't know where you are, this is called Connecting Things. It's a monthly speaker series that takes place throughout Orange County. I was telling my friend on the way down here, I'm one of a small group of volunteers that make this thing happen every month. And I literally made a joke probably 2 years ago at Connecting Things that the whole thing relies and is hanging on by a thread. And it's literally a text thread of like 8 people. And it's not much more organized today than it was like 2 or 3 years ago when we first started. We're constantly figuring out how to pull this thing together. There's a lot of amazing people and places that make it happen, like Giga Savvy, where we are right now. We have some amazing sponsors. Generosity Water's been with us since day one. Z Pizza, Fermench, Kombucha. Are all, did I miss any? There's usually some beef jerky around, but they're not around today, so you'll have to come back to another Connecting Things to partake in some jalapeno beef jerky. That's the thing. Like it really is the thing, it happens. So guys, I'm so grateful and excited to be with you today with this amazing panel. Today we're going to be talking about social good and business and kind of the intersection for how these things work together, the different forms and the ways that those happen as well. We have a really great sort of broad spectrum representation of social good and how businesses can work and relate to that kind of buzzworthy concept that we hear more and more about every single day of our lives. And there's a lot of good in it, and this group, I feel like in a lot of ways represents some of the best of it, honestly, and all like Orange County area folks too, which is awesome, and one of like the key things that we always hope to accomplish with Connecting Things is promoting and uplifting and making the rest of our Orange County community aware of really great things that are happening in the area. So that's what we're up to. Are you guys ready for that? Is the first question. Yeah? So we literally just came up here and we're going to do a quick mic check just to make sure that we can hear everyone from their lapel mics. So this is the audience participation part of the conversation where we want to know before we're like 30 minutes in and you're like, I can't hear you, we want to know that now so we can fix that. So do you want to just say your name really fast, each of you?
Lauren Lilly.
Hello, can you hear Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keturah Kennedy.
Louder.
Keturah, hello. I think it's on. Hello. I'll start at this now.
Okay. Maybe we might need to hold, get it closer. And Jessie, can we hear from you?
Hi, I'm Jessie.
Can you hear okay? Okay, cool. If at any point you can't hear somebody, let us know, and I'm going to start passing this microphone. Okay. So we're talking about social good, and I've already talked way too much on our panel. My name is Kohl Crecelius. I am the founder and CEO of Crochet Kids International. I'll be moderating our discussion today. I would love to start out by hearing from each of you, saying your name again, your title, and a little bit about the work that you do.
My name is Lauren, and I'm the founder and CEO of Yellow 108. Yellow 108 is a headwear and accessories brand. We design and manufacture accessories made from sustainable and salvage materials.
Awesome, thank you. Keturah?
I'm Keturah Kennedy, and I'm the Executive Director of Mika Community Development Corporation in Costa Mesa. So we work with immigrant families in Westside Costa Mesa doing community development. So we work alongside the families over a long period of time, walking with them, helping them facilitate the changes that they want to see for their families and their community.
I'm Jessie. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called 31 Bits, and we are an accessories company, mostly jewelry, working with artisans in Uganda and now Indonesia. And we do development work with artisans specifically in Uganda, holistic care like finance training, health education, and business training. And recently, in this last year, branched into Indonesia to give artisans there access to the global market, and have branched into both metal jewelry and bags now as well. So we're predominantly known for our beaded jewelry made from paper by artisans in Uganda.
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to jump right in. A few things to know if you've never been to Connecting Things before, there's going to be a Q&A at the very end. So if you have questions, hold on to those. We want to hear from you guys and then have a great dialogue after we're all wrapped up. But I want to start hearing just a little bit from each of you about sort of the motivations, what led you to get involved in your work. And Jessie, kind of starting with you, in our work, there's some similarities in working abroad, working in developing countries, working with these communities. One of the questions that we've got a lot throughout the years of our work is the question of why get involved in these developing countries, in these places that seem far off when there's a need here at home. So just want to hear about, early days of BITS and why you got going in the places where you're working.
Yeah, I actually love this question because when I was in college, I was a cultural anthropology major studying local community development work. And Keturah has my dream job. I had many times talking to Keturah about what she did, and that's what I wanted to do was local community development. I never wanted to work internationally in third world countries because I had studied so many ways of how people had gone into these communities and really, unfortunately, been more harm than good. I mean, the idea, which, we are educated on now as a culture, of this idea of handouts and just handing out money without providing education for people can actually cause a lot more harm. And so the idea just scared me that we would go in and have a more negative impact than a positive impact. And so when my friends and I had a chance to go to Uganda and actually met women who had been deeply impacted by a war there, at the same time had lost everything, but were making this incredible product, making this amazing jewelry out of something that could have been trash. They're making rolling up beads out of paper and trying to sell them on the streets. And so we realized that these women have this amazing skill and incredible need, and we have this opportunity to sell their product in the global market and help them create products that are actually fashionable. And so it was something that fell into our laps, but more than anything was built on just simply relationships with women in Uganda. We didn't go to Uganda to start a company. We didn't go to Uganda because we were specifically passionate about any particular cause there, but we really went just traveling for other reasons and ended up building relationships with women, getting to know them, saw a need, and then responded to that need while educating ourselves on how that would look like long-term for these specific artisans. And so that's not to say that there's not an incredible amount of need right here in the US. I really believe that addressing any of those needs starts specifically with building relationships. And so I hope actually one day that we can work with products right here in the US and find resources and opportunity to work with low-income communities here. But we haven't had the opportunities yet, so we'll see.
Awesome. What about you, Keturah? You aren't necessarily, you're not one of the founders of Mika, but you've chosen to be involved from an early point. Now you're charged with leading the organization in Costa Mesa. What's the why sort of behind your involvement? What got you interested and what keeps you going in your work?
My story is kind of opposite of Jessie's because my dream was to do development work overseas and also study cultural anthropology and started volunteering at Mika just out of college. We've been around for 14 years and I've been there in some capacity for 13, and so was going to grad school, was waiting tables, and just wanted to get involved in the community somewhere. And so for me it was just a easy, close place to volunteer, and I absolutely fell in love with our community. And having gone to school at Vanguard, which was just down the street, like I had no idea what Westside Costa Mesa looked like, or that almost 40% of Costa Mesa are Hispanic immigrant families. And you'd think studying anthropology there, I probably would have known those things, but I just didn't. And so I was in grad school planning on going overseas and started volunteering there, and going back to what Jessie said about the relationships, starting to get to know people's stories and recognizing what I had kind of held up as, growing up in the church, the idea of missions, that you go and do this somewhere, and then just building relationships with people in my own city and just recognizing the excitement of being able to work alongside them and and hear their stories. Immigration and issues of immigration was never something I was exposed to growing up in the Midwest, and just starting to hear people's stories totally changed the way I felt about it. And after about 2 years of volunteering, came on staff, and was on staff for 6 years before actually leaving 4 years ago. And really the bigger draw for me has been when I came back as the executive director 2 years ago. Leaving and coming back to something really helps you understand your motivation of doing it too, because when I sat in the meeting with our community leaders and saw even the growth that had happened in the last couple of years, like I wanted to participate in that with them and to be a part of the growth and just the vision that we can see for our community. And you know, I'm also a hairdresser, and had built a business in the 2 years I was gone, and chose to downgrade that a lot because I believe so deeply in our mission, and really felt drawn back into that again 2 years ago.
That's awesome. One of the things I love about this panel is that there's a really great representation working abroad with 31 Bits, working here right literally down the street in Costa Mesa with disadvantaged communities, and then with you, Lauren, kind of taking the environmental approach. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about your decision with Yellow on the Way to build in sustainability to your business. It's a lot harder to do that, as I'm sure you know better than any of us. So could you tell us like why you've made the commitment you have in your supply chain to be so intentional about how you make your product?
Yeah, I mean I love the planet, right? Like,
Do any of you guys love the planet?
Being alive is really cool.
Being
So,
alive, yeah.
and having children that can live on our planet is really cool. So for me, it was more like working for other brands throughout my career and seeing the even smaller brands, the negative environmental impact that can happen. And the fashion industry is the third largest polluting industry in the world. So for me, it was more like how can we utilize the waste or figure out other ways to manufacture within the means of not further polluting. So some things that we do is we salvage materials, which is really nice for the customers because it makes the product limited edition once it's gone. It's gone forever. So we've developed different technologies, recycled hemp, cotton, knit, headwear and accessories that is made from t-shirt scraps and clippings. So basically we sweep up the clippings and we weave those into the knit, which is cool. We also don't dye our products, so that the form in which we salvage, so the colors and patterns and things like that, is kind of how we found it. Dyeing can be pretty harsh, and with headwear, you're putting something on your skin and you're sweating and you're absorbing potentially harsh chemicals. So we're trying to kind of take something that's a bit already washed, or try not to use as harsh things like glue and stuff like that. But really, it's more just the love for being alive and keeping our planet as healthy as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So we're going to jump in I wanted to hear sort of each of your individual motivations, but sort of a group question, we can start with you, Lauren, is just this idea of like, how long has Yellow 108 been around?
almost 8 years.
Almost 8 years. So in that span of time, there has been infinitely more brands and movements and things that attach themselves to this idea of social good or of environmentalism and the things that you've cared passionately about and built your business around. What's the upside to that? What's cool about the fact that there are a lot of other people and companies jumping into maybe a similar space? And what have been some of the challenges that have been represented by that as well?
I wouldn't say that there's really a challenge. I feel like any awareness is good for everyone. And everyone knows in business you have your ebbs and flows, so you kind of have to maintain the ability to change as the years change. The benefit is definitely awareness. brands. So the more brands that are doing socially positive things or environmentally positive things, the more that the general population is going to realize that making certain decisions about purchasing something really basic could potentially make a larger impact in the long run.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jessie?
Yeah, I would agree with Lauren. I mean, I think that thankfully and we've been in this for about 9 years, I think Crochet Kids for about 10 years, right? And I think we were in the forefront of that when we first started 30 Bits, the only thing even comparable that was trying to incorporate fashion with a product with a mission was Tom's shoes at the time. People call this the jewelry brand, or the Toms of the jewelry world. And but even then, I think Tom's was not even a fashionable shoe at that point. It was just a shoe that somehow got trendy. And so it was really the beginning of this movement where people asked questions like, well, how much of the money actually goes to the people? And I thought, well, how much of the money, the shirt that you're wearing, like how much of that do you even know where it came from? And so it was kind of just kind of developing this new thought process for people of where are my products coming from. And now, thankfully, you see that not just with where your clothes from, or your jewelry, or your shoes, but also where's your food coming from, how are things made, going from what ingredients are in your household, cleaning supplies and things like that. And so we're seeing this kind of ripple effect of the words like ethical and sustainable, and they're buzzwords that maybe at one time felt like they were too trendy and that they would go away, but now I think it's becoming something that people actually are paying attention to. And like Lauren said, if you're buying from one brand, it'll be more appealing to buy from multiple brands that have that same mission in mind. And I think that it takes an entire community, village of brands, however you'd say, to really combat the other trend, which is the Forever 21s and the H&Ms and things like that. Because there's also that fast fashion movement that's happening at the same time. So it's these kind of two worlds that have to fight for the same space. And so in some ways I say the more the better, because we need each other to kind of create that movement against the big guys, if you will.
The big guys. But do you guys ever get the sense that that there are people that are just jumping on the trend or the bandwagon, so to speak? Even some of the big some of the big brands that are jumping in to do environmental projects or things. Like, is greenwashing something that you're concerned about at all?
I mean, well, H&M actually released I think Forever 21 might have too. I mean, if it's greenwashing that they did something this much more sustainable, to me that's good. And you can balance, even with choosing to do things sustainably or socially, you have to work out the ingredients and everything. They decide to do 1% difference, that's
Yeah, people make the argument that even a company like Target or an H&M that can make just a slight degree variance, 1% for them is massive. But you guys are also very nice. This is a very nice social good panel, which I agree. I love that. So I want to switch gears a little bit to ask. So this room, connecting things in general, is what I like to believe some of the most creative minds in Orange County. Would you guys agree with that? You guys are like some of the smartest, brightest, best looking people Orange County has to offer. Are we on the same page there? Okay. So I want to talk about creativity and the intersection of that with social good. How important is it, and how do you infuse it into everything that you do?
It's really hard. Having a creative passion is work. So to keep the balance is super, super hard. You have to schedule time to not work.
Okay, we're getting a can't hear you. You're gonna have to repeat that because that was the caboose. Okay. Repeat again.
It's really, really hard to stay creative and stay balanced. I think that ideally everyone that is a creative is really passionate about what they're creating, but it is work, and it's easy to get kind of stuck in the emotions of what you need to do and more of like the admin side of stuff. So personally, I find it to be really hard, and I have to spend an extra amount of time focusing on doing things purely for the art of creating. And I call it inspiration hunting, even if it's just like a day at a museum or reading a magazine and not looking at my phone for 20 minutes or something like that. And it's super hard. It's probably the hardest thing I've found is staying creative.
Yeah, and personally, I want to get back to that, to something that you just struck on. But before that, just to maybe reframe the question too, from an ability to get your mission out into the world and to share what you're doing and the social good that you're having. Like, can you speak to the creativity? And this is open to anybody of just like, you know, what marketing looks like within a social good organization or business. How are you guys utilizing that, and how should we as a greater community of creatives be thinking about how we can engage and support some of the causes and the things we care about here locally?
Well, I think what's a little different for us is we don't have a product, so we're not constantly creating or recreating or trying to stay up on trends, which can actually make it very difficult, and I often feel very uncreative. But what's hard too is that our work of community development is sustained over a long period of time, and so there's not this constant recreating of something, or every season having something new, or even every year starting a new program, because we're not often seeing if our programs are successful for 5 to 10 years of really, you know, if we're trying to change the systems of a community, that doesn't happen in a short period of time. And so the challenge for us is how are we creatively telling our stories, which honestly has been a challenge for us over the years because of the time and the money and the energy it takes to do that well. That can sometimes then feel like it's taking away from the work in the community. And so that's been a challenge for us because, you know, the best parts of our work aren't necessarily like the sexy parts that everybody wants to hear about, right? Because our best stories have taken 10 years. And so we're just getting to some of those now. And so it's constantly a challenge. And doing the work that we do that doesn't have a product, is that how much time and energy do we spend on this? Or you find people that spend a lot of time on energy in that, but they're not really doing much, but they talk about it really well. And so that's where it's been a challenge for us.
Does anybody in this room want to help Micah tell their story better? Can I get a raise of hands? Who's good at storytelling? There's one. Anyone else? Someone in the back? Yeah, connect and yeah, talk more about that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jessie?
Yeah, I mean, in a product-based business, I'm sure both of you can testify to this, you don't unfortunately have a lot of time to keep up. I mean, the world, especially in the last year, has changed so drastically. I mean, how we sell, how people purchase, how people find out about brands. The fashion world is really just changing so rapidly that you get these great ideas, you have these creative thoughts, and you really can't stay planted right there because it's moving so quickly. And so there's a couple different things that we've had to kind of change how we do. One is to not turn down any idea that comes our way, but really test it, figure out if this is where the movement is headed. And an example of that would be a couple years ago, I remember the first group that approached us with this idea of putting a product into a subscription box. And I thought, who's going to pay, $50 to get a box of surprises in the mail? I mean, that's an investment to get a box of things that you have no idea what's in there. I kind of wrote it off thinking, like, no one's going to do this. Well, in a few months, I mean, this whole idea of subscription boxes obviously exploded, and there's a million different brands, a million different websites that talk about these brands of boxes that you can subscribe to, and we've participated in a few of those. It's actually been a really successful form of marketing for our company, and so something that we kind of shot down a couple years ago ended up being a really successful way to market our product. And so it's this idea that how you sell and how you show your brand, who you are as a brand, and how you're telling those stories, and the channels you're telling those stories in is constantly going to be evolving. And so creativity is about not staying in one spot, but really pursuing all different opportunities that come your way.
Yeah, that's awesome. there's a really interesting article in the New York Times, I believe, that I came across where they were trying to understand why people weren't getting as involved with the refugee crisis that was taking place, that has been taking place in the Middle East. And Scott Harrison, he's kind of a quintessential nonprofit marketing guy because he's the founder of Charity Water. He was featured in this article and he said the issue isn't that people don't care, the issue is marketing. The issue is that not enough people know to care about it or are compelled to help in a way that's happening effectively. And it's just kind of a gut. I was like, man, first, that's a really bold thing to say. But it's so true. It's that marketing, the things that many of you do every day, the impacts that they can have is extremely important. And I think collectively as an Orange County creative community, I just want us to sit with that, and if we don't take anything else away from today, take that away and think about the impact and the skill that you have and the way that it can make some serious change. One of the things I want to come back to that you mentioned, Lauren, is this idea of how to stay creative, how to stay excited about the work that you're doing. I think that if anything, one of the main things that social good and creativity share in common is this idea that you pour your entire self out into it, whatever it is, whether it's a creative project or whether there's a passion behind the work that you do, whether it's driven by social or art or whatever it is. But we get burnt out and we don't have time to do the things that we love. So I want to hear from you guys any habits or tools that you work into your daily, weekly, monthly lives that keep you with fresh perspective on your work and keep you passionate about what you do, and see what sort of takeaways we can have for the group.
Currently, for me, I'm reading Harry Potter. It's my first time, and it's really helped me unwind at night. I'm not kidding, that's serious. But on another note, I have maintained my hair business also, and that's actually been a really, really important part of my other work because it's a totally different thing that I'm doing. And I'm working with my hands, I'm engaging, I have to be 100% present with it, and it's really nice after the stuff happening right now with immigration, things that our world is facing, to just sit and talk about Game of Thrones for 45 minutes with somebody. I mean, legitimately though, it forces me out of that space. And it's made it so much easier for me to, when I'm present at Mika, to be really present there. You just have to have good boundaries, and the work is always going to be there. It's never done. And if we're not approaching it, understanding that, we put way too much pressure on ourselves. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that I always tell people, get a hobby outside of your work, something that's totally different, and whether it's just being with friends, whether it's hiking or traveling, being outside. I mean, I think all of those things actually build you as a creative person. I recently listened to this podcast that talked about the idea of putting down your cell phone every time that you're in line at a grocery store and just start observing people and start learning from the people around you. And so I've tried to incorporate little things like that, like just putting my cell phone away at times that's all I want to do for those 5 minutes when I'm so bored. But start just kind of taking it. I mean, that's what people did just 10 years ago, 12, 15 years ago. They actually observed what was going on around them. And that's how you learn, that's how you connect, that's how you engage and get to know the people around you. One of the coolest things about going to Uganda is that self-service isn't good. And so that really gives us the chance to invest into those relationships and connect with the people, learn from those around us. And so I think getting a hobby, I think putting your cell phone down, and then the last thing I would just say is, for me personally, the most important thing is just surrounding myself with a really solid community. People who understand my work, but also care about me as a person. And I think just making time every single week to have dinners with people, to go out for drinks with people, to take a walk with a friend is one of the most important, life-giving things that I do. And it's something that we don't have to talk about work if that's something that is weighing either of us down, but it's things that can it's really just life-giving to have people around you. So I think that's really the most important.
Yeah, for me, I love being supervised at Excel service. That's like my ideal relationship. Also, collaborations I find to be really fulfilling, even though they're work. People are really amazing, and I'm inspired by people and fueled by the energy that I get from other people. So, doing a collaboration with anyone, it could be large or small, for me is really super, super beneficial. Yeah.
That's awesome. You mentioned inspiration hunting, like just getting out of your element, going and seeking out art and creativity. That's awesome. So one of the things that you kind of just touched on, Lauren, and we're going to probably ask just one or so more questions, and then we're going to open it up to you guys. One or so more questions. It could be 10, it could be 20, so just settle in either way. So this idea of collaboration and the sort of greater idea of social good. I think a lot of people in this room maybe don't have, or most likely don't have, a direct connection to social good, or maybe they might run businesses or be a part of businesses that's maybe not baked into the DNA of what they're doing. But you mentioned collaborations. There's lots of creative ways that for-profit companies or larger corporations with social good not their core are engaging with and bolstering social good movements and efforts. So I wanted to hear from you guys about partnerships, collaborations, things that you've done with businesses, with partners that maybe don't have social good at their core, but in partnering together, you guys were able to move the needle further in your work or in your missions.
Well, one of our closest business partners that we have is a valve company. They make valves.
Valve. V-A-L-V-E.
In the last 10 years, I never thought I would come to love and appreciate valves to the degree that I do. But no, our office building sits in the back parking lot of a valve company. It's an international company. And we've been there for 10 years now, and they are an incredible partner. And you don't look at the company and think that they've got a socially minded business, and yet they provide a lot of jobs for people in our community. They have chosen to invest significantly in the community where their business is, which is a lot of businesses or even churches don't necessarily do in terms of caring about the immediate community right around, and have looked for ways to creatively partner with us over the years. And so in terms of when we hear from our community the things that they want and need, jobs and job opportunities are so high on there. And so to have a factory in our community that is providing jobs is really significant, but they're not at the top of the list of people thinking about doing social good in Costa Mesa, and yet it's probably one of the more impactful business relationships that we have.
It's amazing. So if the valve company can do it, guys, you can do it. That's the takeaway there. What else?
Yeah, that actually reminded me that a couple Christmases ago, I guess we didn't promote it, but we partnered with a waste management company in Arizona who did Christmas gifts for all the wives of all the garbage people, I guess. It was really successful. The ladies loved it. But I'll actually kind of take the question a little bit different direction, if that's okay. We actually did a collaboration.
It's not okay.
We did a collaboration, not with someone outside the industry, but with someone that people would see maybe as a competitor of ours, I guess, which we don't necessarily see it like that, but we did a collaborative bracelet with the Giving Keys, which is, most of you probably know, but a jewelry company that works with homeless in LA. And so people would see, socially minded jewelry companies maybe not wanting to promote each other, but we're huge fans of what they do. And again, they're working with people right here in our own backyard in a sense. And so anything that we could do to promote each other was really exciting for us. And so I love the idea of collaborating both, outside of our market, but also within that same market. We're all marketing to women who love jewelry and love to feel good when they buy that jewelry and love to, have impactful purchases. And so we found the campaign to be really successful and cheered each other on.
That's awesome.
I think for me, it's cool to know that a large percentage of our customers it's cool that we can partner with companies, the interest with certain companies, like, for example, we've done some stuff with Banana Republic. The interest from them came out of the fashion, like the aesthetic basically, and then I was able to kind of provide them with a various marketing like platform, and they do care, but it's cool to collaborate and know that you're making a difference with a brand that maybe that's not their DNA, maybe they don't care, but you care, and now your product is making an impact to their customers whether they know it or not, which is pretty cool.
So sneaky.
I mean,
You will do good. We'll get you. We'll get all of you. That's awesome.
I have one more thing too.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't do our work without the collaborations that we have, and doing the work that we do, there are so many opportunities for people doing multiple things and having actually both of Crochet Kids and 31 Bits at one point were like group mentoring some of our teens. We have people who come in and teach classes and just even exposing our kids to things that I'm sure many of you are doing in this room too, and that just exposure piece and the partnering, like it enriches our work so much, and sometimes we would never think of something unless someone else brings it to us and is like, I do this, would you be interested in that? And it's really neat to see how those things that you can't even plan or just can come together too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So we're going to transition to a time of Q&A, so get your questions ready. I'm actually going to take the first question, as in I'm going to ask myself. Not ask myself a question, but ask a question to Keturah. So here's the thing. Keturah and Mika, you guys work very much with immigrant families in Costa Mesa, as you said, with immigration reform. I was thinking about this panel, just the news over the last couple of days of DACA and all that's happening there. I just wanted to get your take so that we could be educated, sort of as a community, on how we should be thinking about what we can be doing to support change, make an impact in any way possible.
Yeah, I'll try to make this as brief as possible. If you're not aware of what DACA is, it stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And it was an executive order done by President Obama in 2012 that created basically a protected class of kids that were brought to the United States by their parents. And so they had no control over that, and have grown up here, are basically American in every way except for their papers, and have had this protection for the last 5 years now, and had the opportunity to, under DACA, if they applied for it and qualified, to receive a work permit, to be able to get a driver's license, and to be protected of just basically saying this is a group of people that we're not going to deport right now. And so if you got granted DACA status, you were able to renew that every 2 years. And so yesterday morning, the president decided to start phasing out that program over the next 6 months, meaning that if you're able to renew in the next 6 months, you can renew by October, but anything after that, you're not able to, once your work permit expires, you will no longer be able to legally work, and actually will then take you out of that protected status. So there's a lot to be said about what this means and the impact that it has nationally for the almost 800,000 students who are a lot of them adults now actually that are working, paying taxes, have gone through our schools, are starting families, are buying homes, buying cars, investing in our economy, and over the next 2 years will be in positions, unless there's legislative change that happens, will not be able to legally work. For us at Mika, we have an employee who has DACA, and coming to work yesterday and seeing Mary and just like giving her a hug and like seeing the hope that still was in her eyes, like it's really incredible just to see how she's choosing to hope even in the midst of her own fear. But she started in our programs when she was 7, grew up in our neighborhood, runs one of our after-school programs now. Like, it's one thing to, see these numbers. It's another thing when this is someone that I've known since, she's 9 years old, and day impact in our community. So going with that, I mean, one of the first things that you can do is, besides educating yourself, if you don't know about what's happening and understanding kind of what this, even outside of all of the conversations around immigration right now, this is one that most people agree on, that these kids shouldn't be punished for the actions of their parents, and have participated already so much that there should be an opportunity for them to, at least a pathway to legalization. And so the DACA didn't change their legal status, it just kind of deferred things. And so over the next 6 months, kind of this window that the president has given Congress, saying this would be the time to pass legislative change, which ultimately DACA was never a long-term solution. Like that's not the best we can do. And so it really does create this opportunity to really push for actual legislation to pass. But if you don't know anybody who's a DACA recipient or understand kind of what that experience has been like for people, I would encourage you to try to get to know someone or to read stories, or there are tons of stories online right now of just listening, because it really does change it from being just an issue that's out there to something that really hits home. Even just, recently a good friend of mine who just lost all of their belongings in Harvey, like that makes how I view that whole disaster differently. Like relationships are at the key to, or at the core of change. If you haven't done any like legislative actions or done any advocacy work, there are some really, really easy introductory things that you can do. Calling your congressional representatives. You can even email them, which is really easy, but if you call, you're talking to a 22-year-old intern, so you shouldn't really feel intimidated by that. But depending on where you live too, there's different ways and different actions that are happening, but I would just say educating yourself, getting to know someone, and be willing to take some sort of step forward.
Yeah, and of course, Mike is a great resource too, and it really does come down to relationship, which I think anybody can, on this panel, can really know and understand and feel, whether it's a relationship with Mother Earth and just our environment and how important that is, and that causes decisions to be made differently, or it's relationships with people. So get to know somebody. Meet somebody tonight is an immediate action step, and then travel, meet people, be nice to each other. Okay, we're gonna open it up to general Q&A at this point. How are you guys doing? Are we good? Yeah? How are you? Okay. What questions do you guys have for this amazing group of panelists? Yes.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but in what way did your chosen vocation of benevolence affect the way you see the rest of your life? Kind of, what's the crossover of what you've learned, and how does that change the way you see things?
Great. I'll just repeat that for the audio, for the audience. How has this sort of vocation related to social good and making a difference, how does that impact your view on the rest of your life and the world around you?
I think that it's made me a really patient person, and it's helped me to realize that nothing is the same forever, so you have to kind of maintain the ability to change as the ingredients in your vision change. And I don't know, I feel really grateful for that. I don't know that I would have had that experience.
Yeah, back to that question about how to just stay calm. You just need to hang out with Lauren, because she's like the most zen person, and we just met today officially, and I love it, so thank you for being here. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think that at the root of it is, again, about people and relationships. And when we started doing this, again, it was built out of relationships. Not at that time, I didn't honestly know that much about the corruption in the fashion industry or the waste in the fashion industry and things like that. And as we grew this company, I learned more and more about that. And even from a personal standpoint, started asking questions like, where does my food come from? What are my cleaning products made out of? Where do my clothes and shoes and things like that, how are they made? And that really comes down, for me, whether it's taking care of the environment or being healthy or whatever, it really comes down to the people. Is it are we creating a clean planet for people to live on? Are we providing safe working conditions for people? Are people able to pay for their kids' school fees and clothes and healthcare and things like that? And so at the root of all of it is really looking at the deeper meaning. But I think you can take that even to a different level where Keturah mentioned that 30 of us as a company, for a couple of years, we hosted a girls' night for the youth in Westside Costa Mesa, where Mika works. And it was a really cool opportunity to open up the doors. We had a big office space, or we had a house that the girls could come to. We had plenty of things for them to do around whether we were carpooling them down to the beach or to a bowling alley or to a skating rink or whatever. I mean, it was really the thing that we had to offer here locally was just our time. I mean, we didn't have to spend a lot of money. And this is not to toot our own horn, but it's really to just share that we had time to offer and we had a couple resources to offer, and so we could bring the girls in and just hang out with them once a month. And there's a couple girls we stopped doing it a couple years ago, and there's a few girls that I've maintained relationships with over the years and have been able to kind of carry on that mentorship with. And so I just think this whole industry has really changed my perspective on how I live my life. Whether it's getting to know a barista or opening up our doors for girls in our own backyard, I think there's a lot of opportunities that you just have to kind of open your eyes to.
Yeah, I would just add, our stated mission is that we build whole relationships and look at the areas of God's, self, and others. And my own reflections of, if I'm not living this out in my own life, how can I lead an organization that's doing that, and just keeping that of how am I building wholeness in my own life in those areas.
Another question. What else do you guys got? Yes.
I was wondering the name of the valve company.
What was the name of the valve company? Who are these God-sent, lovely people?
Clay valve.
Clay valve. Clay.
Valve.
Valve. Clay valve. Obviously. Yes, another question.
Social business is great, but it is a business, right? And right now it's with its own category, right? More and more people are showing. So my question to you is how do you present your company or your pitch? How much do you dedicate to your story, to the need of the product, and or to the product itself? And then also, could you just share a little bit of the profile of your buyers, right? Do they buy the product because they need, or how much of them buy because of the story? So that way I think we have like to help us sustain that.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So the way I hear the question is how much of an emphasis do you put on the product and what you're putting out, like the actual thing that you're creating versus the story, and how do you tell that story, how do you sell it, and what are people buying for?
So obviously everything that we do is made by artisans, and so that story element is such an important part. But everything that we do internationally, I mean, providing safe working conditions and paying ethical prices and providing educational programs, none of that would be possible without a really good product. And so for us, it really goes hand in hand. I mean, we have to put both at the exact same level. And the third part of that would be how do we value the customer and what they're hearing and seeing and experiencing. And at the end of the day, a customer is going to be able to interact with the feeling that they have when they make the purchase over the whole story. And so we are constantly trying to figure out how do we tell a quick, impactful story that someone is going to catch in the 2 seconds you have their attention for. And so we really draw them in with a product that they love. I mean, they're looking at things all day long. They're scrolling of product after product. And so for us, we really have to draw them in with a killer product that they want because so-and-so's wearing it, or because it will look perfect with this outfit, or it'll be perfect for this gift or this occasion, or whatever it might be. And then comes the story element. I actually learned this skill. This is kind of a weird thing to share, but our company.
Let's hear it.
Sorry. Our company recently had, I learned this sales tactic, so I think this is useful. Our company recently sold on QVC, which was kind of a cool opportunity. And on QVC, it's a shopping network on TV that's still around and doing well. But they, I think
my grandma probably bought me like
And, you know, I'm convinced that QVC is like the first Amazon because all these women have to do is call and give their QVC code and boom, the product's ordered. I'm like, they were Amazon Prime far before. So anyway, but the thing that I learned in QVC is you've got 5 minutes to sell, and if you watch any 5-minute QVC segment, the first thing that they do is present the product. They go, doesn't matter what the story is, doesn't matter how cool it is, the first thing they do is go through, here's your color options, here's how much it is, and then you use the rest of those couple minutes to tell why it's so cool and why it's so fascinating. But people have to know what the product is before they care about being educated on it. So.
Sales guys, that's how you do it. Alright? And Lauren, you kind of spoke to that a little bit about your sneaky do-good strategy. Are you going to take over the world and no one will even know it? Do you have anything to add to that?
Honestly, I feel like I'm always trying to figure that out, but also not.
Not figure it out too much.
Well, it's
Yeah.
hard because I've seen people wearing our hats all the time, and I'll be like, hey man, cool hat. And everyone
You look
has
good.
something different to say, and it's generally where they bought it, and how cool the store was, or how it fit perfectly, and it was like their favorite hat, and a bunch of colors. Or how they lost one, and then they had to get a new one. But specifically, recently, this one guy was like telling me all about how much he loved his hat, and my friend was telling him that he should check out my hats. And he was like telling me this elaborate story about how he got this hat at like a craft sale or something. He loved it, and he had it for 8 years. And I was like, "Is this a joke?" It was like our hat he was wearing, and I thought he was messing with
And
me.
it was older than the
It
company
was
had even
like
had.
one of the
Nice.
first hats we ever manufactured. And I was like, he was like, well, what's your brand called? And I was like, you're wearing my hat.
That's you.
And he was like, no way. And I was like, cool, yeah, totally. I feel like you can, if you just do something really honestly, and you trust what you're doing, and you put it out there, and you explain just enough, not too much, the product speaks for itself, and if people like it, it's great, and if they don't, there's nothing you can do about it, really. So,
Awesome.
well,
Product first, there it is. You heard it here. Connected Things, September 2017. Here we go. Last question.
I'm really curious to know, when you guys started with your idea and your passion, how you took it into business, how you got to that next level, particularly with like fundraising or finding an investor. What's your advice, or what was the step that you took?
That's a great question. So she was asking from idea to concept to actually getting a thing going. And I'm gonna first say you're gonna be the first one up here to ask these ladies more in detail because there's like 3,000 questions in that one question, which is great because you gotta start and you gotta get there. But your guys' tidbits, like points of inspiration or like most important things to know or think about when you have an idea and you want to see it come to fruition.
I would say believe in it the most, because no one else will believe you if you don't, and the rest is like, you figure it out, really.
If I owned this mic, I would give it to you so you could drop it. What else?
I don't have the business side of it, but as a consumer too, I think like you have to have a really good product before, like doing something good only gets you so far. And so if you make a marginal product that really, that you're only trying to sell the story of it, I don't think that's sustainable even as I look at my own choices about things. So I think whether that's starting a nonprofit or another business, like you just have to be really good at what you do. And the social side of it isn't enough to carry it on.
Last thoughts, Jessie Simonson.
Yeah, this is just a thought. It's not going to be a how-to guide that you're looking for, but I would say that to echo these girls, you have to be completely passionate about what you're doing before, and it has to be a good idea, and there has to be something there before you're going for kind of this. There has to be something concrete there that you're going for, that you can look back on and remember, this is why I started this in the first place. I lost my train of thought. I think that the thing that you have to remember is that there's going to be this mountain to climb no matter what, and you see all these organizations, all these companies that look like they're on the fast pace to the top. They look like they've had this overnight success. Sometimes people call it the Oprah effect, where they have this one awesome opportunity that blows them up. But 99% of the time, that's not how business works. That's not how it happens. And so you have to be willing to push hard. You have to be in a place in your life where you can take risks financially, take risks with your time, with your money. And so you have to really be willing to work hard and to be willing to kind of be in it, whether it's for the short haul or the long haul, because you don't really know what that's going to look like. But you have to really remember, be able to fall back on why you started doing it in the first place.
Yeah, and the thing I'll add to that is just to start. Like, that's honestly the biggest thing that people get wrong about it all, is like thinking that you have to have the perfect solution, you have to have, you know, all the steps to get to millions of dollars in sales or millions of dollars of revenue, whatever metric of success that you're shooting for. But the reality is that you just start taking one step at a time. You come to a Connecting Things and you start by asking a question, and you come back in a year and you want to hear where you're at, because it's probably going to be amazing. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. We are pumped. Really grateful for you guys' presence here. We do this monthly, so come back and check us out again. Gigasavvy's been an amazing host, so we may be here. We may be somewhere else. So what do? You follow us on social media. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things. You can find Connected Things there, and you can follow along with our every move so you can know where to find us next. We love you. Go do something good.